Kia ora, I'm Erin J. Doyle. Welcome to my channel. I decided that I should make a video talking about my physical TBR because I have stopped counting how many books are on it and I have no idea how big it is. And so I started stacking all the unread books off my shelves all in one big pile. And now it's kind of a bit unstable. And this is just the fiction. So I thought, right, let's just not put my life in danger by continuing to stack, and we'll make a video of just my fiction TBR. Okay, so first up we have two Terry Brooks books. I have read many of his books. I have like a whole shelf of his books, but not all of them. These are a couple of the books that come kind of later in the series. I think I started reading this one and then got distracted. This one I've never cracked the cover. I'm not 100% sure that I want to keep reading. Like, I was super into the series, and then he released some books which were prequels, and I loved those so much, and I kind of feel like it was finished for me emotionally, so maybe I don't need to go back into the future, like maybe the past finished it off for me. But what if I'm wrong? Like, what if these are amazing? What if I should read these? What if I should actually buy the other books that would fit in between this one and this one, because these are not consecutive titles. So these are on the, they're on my physical TBR, but maybe I should just unhaul them pile. I'm not actually sure about them. In the same vein, I have two books from the Sookie Stackhouse series, which I started reading because vampires, and I believe that I like vampire fiction. And I have, I'm sure I've mentioned before, this fantasy thought that maybe one day when I actually have time I might write a thesis on vampire fiction. The problem is, I want the books to all match. I have only read the first one. It's the same covers as these. I'd have to try and find the other covers to match. That seems like a fuss. And I have seen the TV series, and I don't know if I want to commit. So these are the other ones where I'm like, maybe I should just abandon the series altogether, especially given that I know how it goes anyway. Okay, on more exciting ground, we have this shouldn't be the Hunger Games. I picked up the wrong book. This is supposed to be Catching Fire and Mockingjay. Just imagine that I picked up the correct one. I have read the Hunger Games. I started reading the second book, and I think that was in the last few months of my master's thesis, and I handed my thesis in, sold all my worldly possessions, or gave them away, moved out of my house and flew to Canada for a conference in the space of 1 week. And that book didn't make the cull. It was just like, oh, I'm done with you. So I have reacquired, obviously, Catching Fire, the one that's missing. It's over there somewhere. And I think I would like to read them, but I'm not like super passionately excited about it because, again, I know how the story goes. I think for me, seeing the TV show first, it sort of dampens the enthusiasm, or movie I should say, dampens the enthusiasm for reading it, because it's like, I'm not going to discover that much more. But I probably will read these at some point. Goodness knows when. You guys, words. You should be aware that I have this one because I hauled it very recently. The Way of Shadows, fantasy adventure, hooray. And then we have Winterkeep and Bitter Blue. I had actually read Bitter Blue, but, awkwardly, I was given it and read it, not realising that was book 3 in the series. And I kind of started reading it and I'm like, this feels like I should know stuff, but oh well. And I got to the end and I was like, okay, yeah, it's definitely part of a series. I've now read books 1 and 2, which are Graceling and Fire. I would like to read Bitter Blue again before going on to Winterkeep, which is the 4th book in the series. The Hobbit. I read this when I was approximately 8. I have never read it with my own eyeballs. I think I should. Oh no, it's on the floor. Then we have The Need. I've had this since high school. I had to read, I think, sections of it for classical studies, but not the whole thing, and so I kind of thought, oh, maybe I should, like, you know, complete my understanding of the tale. So for me this was a, I want to know the rest of the story, but I'm not, like, passionate about it, so this one will possibly stay on the TBR pile for the rest of my life unless I can think of a challenge to push me to read it. Next we have Water Babies. This was a gift. I remember loving the movie as a child, but I can't remember anything about it. The Odyssey, for the exact same reason as The Need. We're gonna have to go through these fast because oh my god, the pile. Then we have Tarquin the Honest. This is a fantasy by a New Zealand author, so support the local. The Binding, because BookTube told me to. Similarly, Cinderella is Dead, although I did see a video just yesterday saying that it had problematic content, and now I don't know. I'll probably just read it anyway. Next, Day of the Triffids. Always good to read a classic so that you can understand the various pop culture references or not so pop culture references in pop culture. Does that make sense? Moving on. And then we have Breach of Peace and Rebel's Creed for reasons that will eventually show up in a video. And then we have so informative. I have a very old copy of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Again, I like to read the classics. Same tale. Heidi, want to know the story? I mean, I know the story of Heidi and I remember liking it as a kid, but what I remember wouldn't be in a book this long. So clearly there's parts of it I don't know. Next we have Heart of Darkness and Other Stories by Joseph Conrad. I don't know when I acquired this. I don't know why I acquired this, but I have it. Next up we have The Medieval Myths and Ancient Myths. These have a very satisfying secondhand, or no, not secondhand, antique shop smell. Very satisfying. These were both the property of my past grandfather person. I don't know if I will ever get around to reading them, but I will keep them forever. Next up we have a collection of Corsic fairy tales. This one needs to go to the book doctor. And I'm a little bit nervous of reading it before it's had a little bit of work done. The inside looks okay, but I think, yeah, I might just sort of get it a little bit of rehab before I subject it to the tortures of excessive handling. Then we have The God of Lost Things. This is the 3rd book in a series that I have gushed about at length. It is the Hell's Library series. My brain just completely switched off for a second there. As I said, gush about it at length. Glorious adventure, fun times, a little bit queer, set in the afterlife. All afterlives are real, so there's hell, there's Elysium, there's Valhalla, and there are libraries in these places. And those libraries have unwritten books, unspoken words, forgotten things, etc. I have had this book, book 3, for as long as I've had book 2, and I've been putting off reading it for just the right moment when I need a band-aid, because I expect it to be excellent and pleasing. The Absolute Book, New Zealand fantasy writer. Hooray! Support the local. No idea what it's about. The Poppy War, because the internet told me to. The 5th season, because the internet told me to, and it sounds interesting. Set in the future. Something about Earth slowing down and there's another season now or something. Like, I think the title of the 5th season is quite literal. I may be 100% wrong though, because that's definitely not what the back says, so I guess I'll have to read it to find out. The Book Eaters, mostly because I really liked the title, and I think from the blurb, it's literal. The Midnight Library, because I liked the title and the internet told me to. Girl, Woman, Other, because, well, booktube. You guys have a lot of power. The Devil's Trumpet, this is another by a New Zealand author. It's a collection of short stories, so it's going to take me forever to read it, no matter how determined I am, because I just don't really get into the groove of short stories. Like, they're over before I become excited about them. So I'm going to try, but we will try over a prolonged period of time, possibly after I have finished reading. I think I'm on the Huia short story collection, so that one will have to get out of the way first. Then we have The Mad Woman's Ball, which I bought for the cover, and I heard about it on BookTube in someone's haul. Whose was it? Oh, I don't remember her channel name. Jen, I will insert here. She talked about it and it sounded great, and I bought it, and then I saw her review of it and it was negative, and I was like, oh, but I already have it. I will nonetheless just read it anyway, because I paid $35 for it. So that's actually completely standard and normal New Zealand book price, and for a hardcover, practically free. Phaedo by Plato. I'm pretty sure I started reading this for classics at high school, or we didn't have to read it but it was referred to or something. Like, I definitely would have picked it up because of high school classics, and I've had it therefore since I was 15. I've had it for more than half my life and I haven't read it. Should I unhaul it? Next we have How to Live by the Sea. This is a collection of poetry which I've read some of, and then obviously lost interest and put it back on the shelf. I think I haven't written a note to this effect inside the cover, which I normally would, but I feel like I didn't buy this. I feel like I won it, but I don't know when or what for, which kind of affects the emotional value of the object. Change of Heart, this was a gift by people who know literature but not necessarily what I read. I'm sure it is excellent. My attempts to get past the first chapter have been challenged by a lack of enthusiasm. The Fig Eaters. I don't know when I bought this book. I assume it is second hand based on its condition. I don't know anything about it. I assume it's gay. I mean, surely. Apparently it is a thriller. I guess perhaps I could challenge myself to read it this Halloween. We'll see how that plays out, because I've probably had it in excess of 6 years. Right, next up, The Improbable Life of Ricky Bird, a recent gift. It sounds intriguing, or at least entertaining. The Majesties, because the internet told me to. Gone Girl, I don't know if I want to read this. I picked it up because I saw it on like a free book table and I was like, ooh, people say that's good, don't they? And I keep umming and ahhing and deciding I don't care about it, but then I'll see another person giving it a positive review and I stay or go, I don't know, so it has just stayed on the to read shelf for eons. The Petticoat Men, I gather this is about gentlemen who wear pretty dresses in the Victorian or perhaps Edwardian period. I think there's a mystery to be solved or a day to be saved. I really am struggling to get past chapter 1. I have made more than one attempt. The Divine Comedy, because it seems like something I ought to read. But it also seems like something that's going to be like a tiresome struggle rather than a glorious adventure, so it hasn't made its way to the top of the to-read list in the couple of years that I've owned it. The Godmothers, this was a gift. I hadn't heard of it prior to receiving it, and I don't know, like it sounds like it could be alright, but probably not something that I'm going to be super into. It might be something that I just kind of, I can see myself starting to read it and then putting it down and not picking it up again. And because it was a gift, I don't want that to happen, so I don't start. We are a third of the way there. We have the first book in the Wheel of Time series. I read the intro, or like the, not the intro, the, what's it called now? You know, prologue, that's the one. I've read the prologue, it seemed fine. Somebody got excited at me, and I thought, oh, I may have to wait for this person to become slightly less enthusiastic before I can start reading this, because they are 100% going to spoil it, despite their apparent certainty that they are not going to spoil it. I mean, no hate, I appreciate the enthusiasm and the joy, but it's like, if your enthusiasm and joy is going to wreck it for someone, calm down. Anyway, moving on, we have Mischief Acts that I purchased solely for the cover. Just look at it. And also just sounds really interesting and kind of fairy tale-esque. Not in that it sounds like a fairy tale, but that it like incorporates that kind of vibe somehow. That's my feeling about it anyway. But mostly the cover. Empress of Flames, this follows on from The Girl King, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and similar to, what's it called? The God of Lost Words? The other book from Hell's Library that I said was, you know, something I was putting off the reading of for the right moment. This is the same deal. Like, I hope that it's going to be excellent, and I'm just sort of waiting for a moment where I need a book that I can rely on. And if it turns out that I can't rely on it because it's book 2 and book 2 is almost always terrible, I will be sad, which puts me off reading it. Next we have Dragon Keeper. This is one of the last few of the Robin Hobb books which I haven't read, and I'm just trying to fill the gaps in the world of hers as I understand it to be. Arabian Nights, because why not? Classic. Seems like I should be aware of what it actually is. Then we have The Night Tiger, because you guys told me to. Jade City, because the internet told me to. The Mountain in the Sea, mostly because I liked the cover, like pink plus ominous octopus. It's about like a scientist who goes and does research on octopuses and possibly horrible things happen, evil corporation, woo, but also it turns out that it's evil scientist. I'm going to be very upset because I don't like that. The fact that I'm a scientist has nothing to do with that. Next we have Where. This should be excellent. It is an award-winning New Zealand book. It should be great, but it does deal with trauma, and I don't want to just read it arbitrarily. I want to read it when I'm in a place to deal with trauma, so whilst things not related to books are being quite stressful, perhaps this one can just stay on the shelf being pretty for the time being. Confessions of an Opium Eater, because the title intrigues me. The Kite Runner, because the author got stabbed. Obviously I had to purchase their work and support them. My Year of Rest and Relaxation, because the internet told me to. Obviously I have no self-control and probably need to stay off the internet, or at least like cancel my credit cards if I'm going to continue watching things on the internet. The Bees, this I have already read, I don't know why it's in the pile. Off you go. We have The Axeman's Carnival, Remote Sympathy, and Golden Deeds, all by Catherine Chidgey. I buy all of her books, and when I do read them, I love them. They are always 5-star reads, but I do find her work, for me personally, takes a little bit of getting into, and I find that it can take me quite a while. Like I think, what was it? The Beat the Pendulum? It took me probably a third of the book, if not half, of just, you know, slow slogging through, and then it kind of hit this tipping point where I was like, oh my god, and devoured it. And I think it was the same for The Wish Child, although I hit the devouring stage a little bit earlier. I assume these will be the same. They are also, I have autographs for some of these, and it seems like this was autographed in 2012. It seems like, I don't know, disrespectful not to read it. I don't think the other two are autographed. Yeah, I think these ones were Remote Sympathy and The Axeman's Carnival were both released after I moved north and was no longer able to attend the book launches in person, so they haven't been autographed, but my other books by her all have been. That really has no bearing on their value. Why am I talking about it? So, by future me's count, that is this many books, which I assume is a really big number based on the number of piles that I'm now surrounded by. I can also see from this angle several price tags that are still on covers. I'm like, oh my god, this is why I'm poor. Anyway, if you want to see a non-fiction version of this, let me know down in the comments. I may make one, I may not, but if you let me know, then yeah, I'll make it. Let you know that you want it, then I'll make it. Wording hard. So, with that in mind, I will wrap it up here, because clearly I'm not going to wrap it up like nicely if I keep trying to talk. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a like. Let me know down in the comments if I should keep and read the books that I wasn't sure about, and if you want to see a non-fiction version of the physical TBR video, and if you haven't already, maybe hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!